Welcome to the Salesforce Admins Podcast. Today on the podcast, I'm joined by Gaurang Mathur, Product Manager on the AI App Dev team at Salesforce. And we're going to talk about something every admin has wrestled with at some point, which is formulas. And we're also going to hit on how setup with Agentforce is changing the way we create, modify, and even understand them. Hooray. I can always use some formula help. So Gaurang is going to share with us how agents can validate, fix, and describe formulas right inside setup, and why that matters, especially if you've inherited an org or you need to do something super fast. We also touch on Agentforce vibes, which you heard in last week's episode with Tian, and some developer workflows and, kind of what it means to build smarter with tools using AI. So if you're like me, and you've ever stared at missing parentheses and wondered why your formula won't save, this episode's for you. And with that, let's get Gaurang on the podcast. So Gaurang, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, Mike. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Well, after we talked with Cheryl, it was important that I get a lot of the people that she works with on the podcast, because you guys are doing some really exciting things around setup with Agentforce. I think I said that correctly. And just some of the things with agents. So let's get started with tell everybody kind of what you do at Salesforce and how you got there.
Yeah, sure. Thanks. So my journey has been pretty interesting to where I am today. I started off as a PM for the caching group, which is again a platform product. Platform cache is something that's widely used, and this queue is helping a lot of ISVs to accelerate and make their applications better perform. And over the past 5 years, I've also managed products in the Experience Cloud search space. And now I'm currently managing two agentic products, which is, again, hardcore platform products meant for our Salesforce admins and developers, the superheroes in the whole ecosystem of Salesforce. And as part of that, as you mentioned, I closely work with Cheryl on the Agentforce setup with Agentforce. And over there, I am managing the space for formulas. I think that's where I'm going to talk mostly about in today's podcast. And the other product that I'm managing is Agentforce Vibes, which is again one 0 to 1 product that we have all built over the last few years. There, I'm creating an MCP tool, which is basically making that agent much more smarter and getting a lot of ecosystem teams within Salesforce to contribute that and then make it better in generating whatever metadata that it generates. So yeah, that's my portfolio here in Salesforce. We are part of this whole group called as AI App Dev. That's where we've got Tian, I think one of the other guests in the previous podcast, Cheryl and Push. These are the folks that I'm working with, and excited to be in this whole space in the current.
Yeah, wow. 2 products. So you sleep only a couple hours a night, I'm guessing.
Yeah. I mean, these days agents have been keeping us alive. I mean, and so yeah, I'm just, as I sometimes joke with my family, I'm making agents smarter. That's what we work on.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about formulas, because I think, I go back to, 10, 15 years ago, a staple in admin track was always a best practices on formulas and validation rules. And I always felt like formulas as an admin was as close as some people felt to getting to code, because, we could carry over a lot of the stuff that we'd learned in different spreadsheets into formulas. So tell me a little bit about what you're doing with formulas and setup and how that works.
Yeah, thanks. I mean, I think you touched on a very fundamental point. And before I get into the actuals of what we're trying to do, but I'd like to double click on what you just mentioned, Mike, which is formulas have been a very legacy product within Salesforce. They have been integral in the whole platform since, a very long time. And I'm quite excited to carry that legendary thing. I'll just share some numbers with you in terms of, how big and the scale of impact that formula has in the whole ecosystem. So almost on a monthly basis, there are 5 billion formulas that get executed across Salesforce orgs. And 7 million admins and developers manage, create new formulas or modify formulas every month. So that scale is fairly huge. And these formula engines and formulas are supported across almost 40 odd Salesforce services, which includes flows, business rule engines, SLAs, fields, validation rules, and whatnot. So, like I said, the scale is fairly huge. And we've seen admins using it, developers using it, building formulas quite often. But there has been like a constant ask and problems that we've seen that admins figure out is creating them. Somebody is coming up in a new org and then just trying to modify those formulas. So those scenarios have been quite error prone and time consuming processes and sometimes challenging for admins. So with agents coming in, we asked admins, how do you see agents helping you and what is that agent should do for you? And among the top 10 asks, managing formulas was like right number 3 and 4. So that led us all to make a dedicated decision and team that we should be improving and working towards creating a better formula management experience for our admins with the setup with Agentforce that's coming in. And we did a few releases. I mean, it was one of the few things that we did for formulas. I mean, almost a year back. And now with the beta coming in for setup with Agentforce, it's right up front and center. So back to your question then, what exactly we are doing. So we are, as part of this beta that's coming up in TDX, we are giving options to create a formula through a setup with Agentforce agent, modify it, fix it, and let it also describe what this formula is. So yeah.
You end very casually, but that's kind of really big. I know if you were to look back in my search history pre AI, 90% of it as an admin was, why doesn't this formula work? And I think when AI first came out, that was one of the, I remember I was at a user group and that was one of the prominent use cases for using an AI was to check your formulas. Because formulas in Salesforce are much like they are in various spreadsheet programs.
Mhm.
So you can kind of understand it. And I remember thinking to myself, oh man, the hours this would have saved me if I could have just copied and pasted a formula and had an AI read it and be like, oh, you forgot a parens or you missed a comma again, you know?
Correct. Exactly. I mean, and those mistakes makes us human, and this is where agents can help in and chime in to just call out, hey, this is the error, this is the fix. And that's exactly the first principles that we are considering as we build these agents, as we are like coming up with this whole agentic experience for our admins. So let me just share you one example for that. I mean, what we've just recently demoed to some of the customers and which was very exciting overall. So imagine you are, in a company that's managing volunteer experiences and other things. And out there, you have a formula which is helping you calculate the number of attendees that are there, the volunteers that are going to be participating in that event. And you have all that formula baked in and all that. But suddenly, the admin who was working on that leaves, or there is change, and now you are on your own and you just have to just kind of get things going because your event is coming in or there is some business requirement that comes in. So it gets difficult for anybody to just jump in and get going right off the bat. In this case, we are coming up with modifying a formula wherein when you see this formula there and you open the agent through the setup page, the formula page, out there the first thing that the agent does is it's just simply validating the formula and helping you understand what this formula does. Once you get that, now it basically helps you understand and comprehend, oh, this is what this formula is, these are the conditions, this is what it will do. Now, when you have to make some modifications, you can now just simply prompt it, and then the agent does the rest of the job for you in a very quick and easy way. So, this is something that's like really profound. And while we were sharing it with our early users, that was welcomed. And I'm hoping the community, as they see and they'll listen, try it out and then figure out what it does.
Yeah, I think, I mean, thinking through there's two parts to really what you described, which was it can do it, but then the second part was it can describe, and that's just such a big part of everything that we do. Plus, I always feel like, at least for math, and formulas felt like math, if I could see a finished product, then I was more apt to kind of understand and work through it as opposed to kind of come to that solution on my own. But you mentioned Agentforce vibes, and I think that's also, I don't know if you could say companion product, but it's another way to develop on the platform. How have you kind of found some crossover in what you're working on for Agentforce for setup with Agentforce vibes?
Oh, so you can call them as different facades for different personas and end users. So let me help you with what we are trying to do with Agentforce Vibes. Agentforce Vibes is quite focused on our developer friends in the Salesforce ecosystem, as
Mm-hmm.
it's a plugin that you download in Visual Studio Code, and then you get start vibing and create new schemas, the metadata that you want to, and everything that happens within Salesforce. Whereas setup with Agentforce is more focused from the setup UI that you had and how do you manage them. I mean, and managing formulas, permission sets, and different other things that we are going to. So it's a bit of a persona difference that we've had here, but we're trying to have almost the same engine behind the hood, which is what one of my teams is working on, and surface it in different facades, like I said, or the agent, so to say.
Yeah. No, that's kind of how Tiana explained it too. And we do have. I did a podcast with Daryl Moon, who was actually super interested in Agentforce vibes, just because it really kind of jumpstarts you in terms of app creation and some of the tediousness that can be started, so you can really focus on some of that really fun stuff that you like to do. Maybe like formulas. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it. I mean, so considering in this day and age wherein we've got different LLMs and frontier models are trying to do, this is something that maintains the Salesforce trust and the ecosystem intact. It's everything. It's built on those foundations. So, yeah, I mean, I'm excited to just as you said, just you can prompt it and make some utterances and then play it out with some apps that gets generated by the agent there with Agentforce vibes.
I know you said you worked in search for a little bit. Has any of the things that you've had to learn about search carried over to what you've had to learn about agents, or vice versa? Or are they just two different worlds?
Yeah, that's an interesting one, and thanks for asking it. So it goes back when we started off, or when the agents were just getting launched. I think a couple of years back. It seems eternity away, but yeah, that's how the agentic universe works, right? We were given a task. I mean, we were just basically figuring out in terms of what best we could do and leverage the agents that we have in place and create an optimal search experience for the end users, and then and basically enable our admins do that, and leverage the AI power that we were getting in. So what we did was we were doing something that you even find today in Google search. When you put in a search query, you get a snippet at the top itself, which basically summarizes or creates an answer for your query. Ultimately, that answer is basically based on the search results that are floated, and then you get that summary. So that was the first time that I learned about RAGs, and RAG is regressive augmented generation, and all the AI technologies that are there. So I use those, and now I'm kind of applying them again in terms of creating the vibes metadata experts that we are doing, the MCPs that I talked about. Again, we're trying to apply the same principles in terms of when there is an utterances there. What do you best you should be focusing on, such that the metadata that it's generated is relevant to the prompt, and it's of best quality. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's where that crossover happened between those two things. But yeah, there's a lot has since that time has evolved overall in the ecosystem and agents that we're developing.
Um, so listening to your answer, I came up with another question. I come up with lots of questions.
Yeah, no, excited to have
Do
that.
you think, based on the progression of where technology was going, because I heard in your answer about search that there was some form of RAG involved. Was the invention of AI just inevitable?
I mean, so that's a very fundamental. AI has been there for a while. I think we all, knowingly, unknowingly, have been using AI in some form and factor. I think for more than a decade or two. I mean, simple considering with Google Maps that we had, or the YouTube recommendations that we had, in some form and factor, knowingly, unknowingly, we all had been influenced by AI for a while now. But in current day and age, AI has taken a form which is much more tangible and which is much more right in the face with the GPT models and the LLMs that we have. I think this is where it is like picked up as a mainstream for all one and all. And yeah, I mean, with that there are multiple applications that have come into, which is as we as a platform teams are focusing on or are helping in terms of coding and generation of different codes and configuration and all that happens. AI application is again coming into. I see the latest LLM model is generating it, and then helping in terms of the legal services and helping in terms of the healthcare services, helping in terms of the technology services, and where else there have been multiple applications. So you can just vibe, you can just ask the agents, and then you get appropriate collaterals developed and things that can be done.
Yeah. No, for sure. What do you, I mean, you're essentially creating the future. Do you envision getting to a point with AI where, I mean, this feels very meta, but where an agent is almost helping you create a better Agentforce vibes or a better setup with Agentforce?
Yeah, I mean, so we are in a way trying to do that. I think with Agentforce itself, we have this learning curves wherein we are trying to feed the system about the feedback that we receive,
Hmm.
and then based on that, putting it into agents to just improve that. So yeah, that's something that's very nascent. I mean, it's not mainstream right now. All humans are involved in that, but I think that's inevitable. It's bound to happen, and I see a lot of frontier model companies doing that today.
Yeah, I just, it's crazy to think that we have a tool that could help make a better tool. It's growing up in the generation I did, where I remember having a cordless phone in the house was a big leap of technology.
Yeah.
Being able to ask something and get a very human response back is something very interesting. That leads me back to formulas, because uh, formulas were obviously invented a long time ago. I don't, formulas are probably a derivative of math. I don't know for sure. I don't know the history of formulas, but I'm wondering, if based on how formulas are built and the operators and the syntax that we use for formulas, if there isn't something better that AI could invent that would almost replace formulas.
I think formulas is something, to your point, very elementary and fundamental in my opinion. So we are in chat with our teams in Agentforce and other places as well that embed formulas into them. I mean, simple to your point. The math functions that we have, let's say the date functions or the operators that you have, you need those fundamental building blocks everywhere and anywhere. I mean, like I said at the start, we are supporting almost 40 odd services within Salesforce. I think those are still non negotiable, in my opinion. I mean, that's basically a fundamental building block that will be used. And ecosystems are built on top of it. That's how, I mean, agents will be using those formulas to function better as part of the agent force scripts. If that's one thing that we have as a product, we are coming up with in terms of how do you define certain logics based on certain utterances, what should be that logic that should be executed, what should be the operators, and based on that we're just trying to define that flow of things and all that. So again, that's some derivative of formulas to what I just described. Yeah, like I said, formula is a fundamental building block. At least I don't foresee it getting replaced completely. It
Right.
will be there in some or the other form, not apparent to the end user. But yeah, I don't know if it's something that can be just bypassed overall.
Oh, I don't think bypass, but I always look at, there's there's always tech that's trying to replace tech, right?
Yeah,
Like the fundamental question is always, what if email was invented in 2026? Would it look different than it does now?
yeah,
And then people try to reinvent it, except I think fundamentally it's still you're reinventing it, but having knowledge of what the previous version was. And so that's the same thing that happened with email is it was created based on knowing how physical mail works.
yeah,
And so, we built upon that. You can't truly kind of erase that. But I also just watched a video where two AI assistants were talking to each other. And one of them said, well, I'm an AI assistant. Can we switch to Gibberlink
yeah, yeah,
and communicate that way? And then they have this whole conversation that's like a bunch of beeps. And I'm like, wow, what?
yeah, 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 yeah. No, I
Maybe they're
saw
going to invent their own formulas rules. So,
that. Totally. Yeah.
I'm fine with that because, to be fair, I usually get the number of parens wrong. So
Oh yes.
that's,
So I like I said, I think there would be some form and factor of the basic math. I think that's what formula is all about, right? I mean, those basic equations and some descriptions. I think those are non-negotiable. Those won't change. But to your point, I mean, they may be in that gibberish or the beeps or the whatever text we write in some factor. You'll definitely need basic maths, and that's what formulas does.
yeah, absolutely. So I like to ask kind of towards the end of the podcast, like, a lot of people, a lot of PMs that I talk with, we all work in tech. A lot of people in the community work in tech. Like at the end of the day, you turn your monitor off and you don't really get to see what you've done per se. It's not like a stonemason, for example, who can see the brickwork that they've done.
Yeah.
I'm curious. Do you have any fun or interesting hobbies outside of building two AIs for Salesforce?
Yeah, no, thanks for asking that. Yeah, I've got two AIs in Salesforce, and I've got two daughters who keep
Oh,
me busy
yeah.
when I'm not on my laptop or not working. I'm based out of in India, Noida. There's a city called as Noida. So, born and brought up here with my family, with my parents living here, and they've been inspiration for me to be where I am today as a product manager. I mean, something that I've learned, and that's part of the DNA that we have. I mean, talking to different people, learning about who they are, and then if at all you can, empathize, solve some problems with them. That's something that's a bonus. So I think I kind of have that same thought and process while I'm trying to work as a PM at Salesforce. Besides work, like I said, just being with my family, there are a lot of friends and family that we have in my city. So yeah, something or the other keeps happening, and we meet each other. So that keeps me grounded too.
I could imagine. I also envision having two daughters. You get an interesting perspective on technology that perhaps you wouldn't see because they've grown up with mobile phones their whole lives and touch screen, and so I'm sure they have a very very different thought philosophy than some of us.
Yeah, yeah. So for now, they are fairly young to get a mobile phone handy for them. My elder one is 5, and the younger one is 1.5. So No phone
Oh,
for them
yeah.
right
Well,
now. No.
I don't know.
Yeah, at least for now, no phones for them. But certainly, I mean, to your point, as technology evolves, how AI will shape the world, nobody knows. I mean, I've been reading about this all like every now and then in terms of has a clue in terms of what job market or the overall workplaces would look like 5 years from now. So yeah, interesting times to be in.
Yeah. I mean, your daughters will also grow up not knowing what it was like to not have AI.
Certainly.
That will just be fundamental and baked into a lot of the things that they do. So, it's completely conceivable that one day your daughter moves into a house and the house can tell you to unplug the blender, or the blender ran too long, or the blender motor's going out because it used too much electricity or something.
I think that's there today. I mean, with some products out in the market, which with IoT and Nest available, you can regulate like on temperatures and talked about that and control that and ask it. I think we are almost there. We're just there. So yeah, I mean, to your point, it'll be interesting for them to see and observe and just augment their lives with it. So yeah.
Right, right. Very much so. Well, I appreciate you taking time out of your day to share this with our admins. I know they're super excited for some of the stuff that Cheryl's team is putting out and to see it all in place at TDX this year. So thanks for taking time to come on the podcast.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me. This was certainly a great conversational experience for me, and yeah, doing this is something that I was looking forward to it, and happy to share what we're doing, in our world here at Salesforce. I mean, the way all my teams, as part of the AI App Dev Dog that I mentioned, are constantly working night and day to just create this better experience for our admins and developers. I'm looking forward to see how our admins perceive that once it goes out in the market, and I'm quite looking forward to see the community at TDX and just get those first-hand reactions of them when they use our products. So yeah, thank you.
So big thanks to Gaurang for reminding us that formulas may be foundational, but they don't have to be frustrating. I really love how a lot of setup with Agentforce brings together the fundamentals like formulas with the future of AI in a way that feels very practical and grounded. I hope this episode got you thinking a little bit differently about how you build or maintain logic in your org. So if it did, hey, do me a favor, share it with a fellow Salesforce admin, developer, architect. And of course, as always, be sure to check out the resources in the show notes to learn more about Agentforce and what's coming next. And until next time, we'll see you in the cloud.